Step away from the vehicle, ma'am. This isn't your car. I just unlocked it. That's cute. The officer's smirk was slow, condescending. Ma'am, don't make this harder than it already is. 2 squad cars. 1 woman. In heels and pearls. A matte black Tesla parked neatly in front of a designer boutique. People started from the windows. Some filmed. Others just watched. Silent. We've had reports, the second cop said, gripping her arm. You match the description. Brown woman, expensive vehicle, suspicious activity. I'm not suspicious. I'm a customer. You're somebody's. Customer, all right? The handcuffs clicked tight. Her wrists flinched, but she didn't wince. Her purse hit the ground. Still, not a word. A bystander gasped. Are you seriously arresting her? She didn't do anything. We're detaining her, the first cop snapped, until this gets cleared up. The woman's phone buzzed in her pocket. Do you mind? She said, voice calm. I'd like to make a call. Who? Your stylist? The second cop sneered. Make it quick. She dipped her shoulder. They helped, ironically gentle now that their show was over. Her fingers slid against the screen. 3 taps. Hi, sweetheart, she said softly. Yeah, I'm outside, on 5th and Maynard. 2 officers detained me. Tesla. You know which one. The line paused. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Tell Garrett to bring the log footage. And yes, use your badge. Silence again. She hung up. No screaming. No threats. Just a breath. The officers scoffed. Right, the second muttered. Let me guess. He's a lawyer or something? No, she said. Worse. The first officer chuckled. Let me guess. FBI? She didn't answer. 2 minutes. Passed. A screech of brakes. An unmarked black SUV. Doors flew open. A tall white man in a sharp blue suit walked directly toward them. Badge out. I'm Assistant Director Hawley. Internal Affairs, he said flatly. Uncuff my wife. Both cops blinked. The silence was nuclear. You heard him, she said, gazing still forward. Uncuff me. Their hands trembled, unlocking the cuffs. The pearls on her wrist shimmered as her hands dropped to her sides. Are you the 2 who detained her without verification? Hawley asked. We had a call. She matched the description. Matched what? A successful black woman in a clean car? They said nothing. I want your body cam footage now, he added. And I want your captain on the scene in 3. He turned to his wife. You okay? She nodded. Always. Blue lights still flashed faintly, casting a glow on the pavement. The boutique doors stayed shut, customers trapped behind frosted glass, pretending not to watch. Captain Lohr pulled up in his SUV, stepping out with the stiffness of a man who already knew someone screwed up. Director Hawley, he said, nodding. Cautiously, Hawley didn't nod back. Your officers detained my wife. No verification. No probable cause. And now you're here because I called from a federal line. Not because protocol worked. Lohr looked at the 2 officers, Davis and Clements. Clements spoke first, his voice just a little too fast. Sir, we had a radio ping. Report of a stolen Tesla. The lady was standing right by it. We detained her. Per SOP? Did you ask for ID? We didn't get that far. You cuffed her before asking for ID? Hale's voice dropped lower, colder. In front of witnesses. On a public street. Wearing heels. Holding designer bags. Lohr cleared his throat. Director, with all due respect, I'm sure this was a misunderstanding. I'm sure it was a pattern. He turned to his wife. Are you okay speaking? She gave one short nod and stepped forward. I unlocked my car. They told me I didn't belong. When I said I was the owner, they asked if I was a stylist or someone's assistant. Then they grabbed me. Her voice was flat, no shake, no anger. Just iced out. Officer Davis muttered, "Ma'am, it wasn't about race. You were a well-dressed black woman outside a luxury store in a nice car." "That's what I was, and that was enough." Laura's face reddened. "Gentlemen, go sit in the car." "But, sir, now." They obeyed. Doors slammed. Captain Laura turned back. "Director Hawley, what's your intention here?" Hales stared, didn't flinch. "You think this is about me?" "No, sir. But I know you have reached." "I'm not using my position to punish anyone," Hawley said slowly, "but I will use it to expose patterns. I want every traffic stop your department's logged in the last 6 months filtered by race, gender, and outcome. I want complaint records. I want any open internal investigations." Laura hesitated. "We'll need time. You've got till the end of the week." Mrs. Hawley tilted her head slightly, watching the captain squirm. "I'd also like a copy of the footage." She added, "You know, for my podcast." Laura blinked. "You run a podcast?" He asked, trying to sound friendly. "I do." She smiled for the first time. "It's called Dignified Silence. I cover racial profiling, institutional rot, and how quiet people can still cause earthquakes." The silence that followed was louder than any siren. The video hit 2.3 million views in 6 hours. No music, no edits, just raw body cam footage. "Step away from the vehicle, ma'am." "That's cute." "Ma'am, don't make this harder." "You match the description. Brown woman, expensive vehicle." "Oh, your husband?" "Sure, let's call him. Maybe he's a lawyer." Then the camera caught the SUV, the badge flash, the reversal, and finally, her whisper, "I'd like a copy of the footage for my podcast." Comment sections flooded. She handled that with pure grace. "She's colder than steel and twice as sharp." How many others didn't have a federal husband to step in? The boutique posted a statement. The department posted an excuse. And Mrs. Hawley, she posted nothing. Not a tweet, not a reel, not a stitch, but her podcast? Uploaded at 9:02 m. Episode title, "What Quiet Sounds Like in Handcuffs." Meanwhile, inside the precinct, murmurs spread like smoke. "Did you hear who she was? They're calling for disciplinary action already. Captain had to meet with the mayor this morning. I heard both those cops are on desk duty now." In the break room, Officer Reynolds scrolled TikTok and winced. "I mean, yeah, Davis was out of line," he muttered. Sergeant Mina looked up. "Out of line?" He grabbed her before even asking her name. She matched the call. She matched their assumption. Mina's voice sharpened. It wasn't about a call. It was about what they saw and what they believed. Down the hall, Captain Lohr stood at the window of his office, watching reporters gather outside. He hadn't seen this much heat since the last protest march, except this time, the face in every thumbnail wasn't screaming. She was silent, calm. Perfect posture. Pearl earrings. And that made it worse. At a local college, in a law class, a black student pulled up the video during a lecture. "You see the part where she says, 'I'd like a copy of the footage'? That's not just a mic drop. That's pre-litigation language." She wasn't reacting. She was documenting. The professor chuckled. "She handled it like an attorney." "She's not an attorney," the student corrected. "She's better. She's someone the system doesn't expect." The room nodded in silent agreement. Back in their home, Mrs. Hawley stood by the window, watching the rain trail down the glass. Hawley entered, loosened his tie. "2 more press requests," he said. "NBC in essence." She didn't answer immediately. "I don't want interviews," she said finally. "I want conversations. You already started one." She turned to him. "Not really. They started it with cuffs." "I'm just replying." He nodded. "Anything I can do?" She smiled faintly. "Yeah, Remind me to get the next episode transcribed. We're going multilingual. A week later, a headline ran in a local paper. Federal official's wife stirs online uproar, officers say they followed protocol. Mrs. Hawley stared at the article on her phone. The photo they used? A still of her blinking mid-sentence, lips parted, eyes halfway closed. Deliberately awkward. They didn't reach out for comment. Didn't mention the body cam. Didn't mention the apology the department gave off record. They framed it as an online misunderstanding. At the precinct, Captain Lohr sat stiffly across from the city attorney. You've got two officers in the middle of a media hurricane, the attorney said. We need to protect the department's reputation. They violated protocol, and now it's her word against theirs. Even with footage, we can argue escalation. She never escalated. The attorney narrowed his eyes. Then maybe. You should ask why her husband's allowing all this to spiral. He's not pushing this, Lohr said slowly. She is. The attorney leaned back. Then maybe she needs to understand what happens to people who make the department look bad. Lohr looked away. 3 days later, an envelope arrived at the Haller residence. No return address. Inside, a still photo from the body cam and a single sentence on the back. You looked better silent. She slid the note across the table. Her husband picked it up, face tightening. Anonymous? He asked. Unmarked. No fingerprints. She was calm. You want me to file it? No. She stood. I want you to hold it. I'll handle the rest. That night, her podcast uploaded a new episode, EP 43. They sent a picture. I sent a message. She didn't name names. Didn't rant. Didn't accuse. She read the note aloud, then said, with sharp softness, I've been black and female my whole life. Threats don't scare me. They confirm I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She paused. You don't scare a woman who's already lived through disbelief, discrediting, and detention. You just give her a bigger audience. The comments poured in. Give her a mic and a seat in Congress. This is what power sounds like in pearls. Every black woman I know has a story like this. She just gave it a mic. But the pushback wasn't over. A local morning show ran a segment the next day. Is social media making police work impossible? One of the guests, a former precinct chief, spoke directly to the camera. We can't let every confrontation become a witch hunt. The woman was cuffed and released unharmed. This should have been a closed matter. Another guest, a black civil rights attorney, tilted his head. We don't want witch hunts. We want accountability. And a woman being cuffed just for standing beside her own car? That's not harmless. That's humiliating. Back at home, Mrs. Hawley scrolled silently. Her husband stood in the doorway. You good? I'm better then. Good, she said, setting the phone down. I'm steady. She walked past him, then paused. They thought cuffs were the end of my story, but they were just the comma. The department's email servers lit up Monday morning. Subject: Formal records request. Traffic stop data inquiry from Dignified Silence Podcast legal team attached. Were 11 legally binding FOIA requests. Everything from racial breakdowns of stops ... to internal complaints against Davis and Clemens. Filed. Time-stamped. Public. In the podcast's next episode. She didn't yell. She read. Page after page. Officer Davis has 5 prior complaints for aggressive stops against women of color. Officer Clements was named in a 2020 incident where a black teenager was mistaken for a suspect outside a library. Each line quiet. Measured. Devastating. Downtown. A city council member rewatched the episode 3 times, then called her assistant. Get me Mrs. Hawley. I want her on the next panel for police oversight. On campus, 2 law students built a web-based database using Hale's findings. They called it whotheystop.com, every stat color-coded, every report clickable, every trend undeniable. It hit 100,000 views in 2 days. At the precinct, Officer Davis opened his locker and found a post-it stuck inside. How many times do you match the description, bro? He tore it off angrily, slammed the locker shut. But the looks he got in the hallway, quiet, cold, not supportive. Even his own squad mates weren't speaking up this time. Captain Lohr stepped into the bullpen. All staff meeting in 10. 10 minutes later, every chair was filled. Some stood. He didn't yell. He pulled up a screen. Footage. You match the description. This isn't your car. Let me guess, he's a lawyer? He let the silence hang. Then, calmly, officers, this is what national disgrace looks like. These words, this tone, that moment. Someone shifted in their seat. I've been in this department 18 years, Lohr said, and never has a single misstep lit a fuse like this one. Not because it was violent, but because it was so normal. He looked straight at Davis and, Clemens, you didn't just handcuff a woman. You handcuffed the wrong one. That evening, Mrs. Halle walked into a quiet community center. No cameras, no press, no performance. Just 20 young women, Black, Latina, Asian, Muslim, sitting in folding chairs, notebooks open. She stood at the front, pearls still on. You don't need volume to make impact, she said. You need clarity. A girl raised her hand. How did you stay so calm? She smiled. Because I knew who I was and they didn't. By the end of the week, the mayor's office requested a meeting. 3 national magazines requested interviews, and 2 local officers were under formal investigation. But Mrs. Halle? She still hadn't posted a single tweet. The auditorium was packed. A city-sponsored community policing town hall. Media sat quietly in the back. Mrs. Halle sat in the front row, her legs crossed, notebook closed, pearls visible. On stage, a panel of 5, 2 city reps, 1 police liaison, 1 youth activist. And Officer Davis. He wasn't supposed to be there. He volunteered last minute. Said he wanted to speak for himself. He adjusted his mic. Look, I've served this city 10 years. And yeah, sometimes situations move fast. We make mistakes. But we're human. What happened wasn't racism, it was confusion. Silence. He looked directly at Mrs. Halle. I didn't see race. I saw what I thought was a match. She didn't. Flinched. He continued. And I've seen my name dragged through social media for days. I've got family, kids. This isn't easy for us either. He leaned forward. So I guess what I'm asking is, Mrs. Halle, do you believe I'm a racist? The room turned. Camera lights rose. Recorders clicked. She stood slowly, not approaching the stage, just turning slightly to face the crowd. Then she spoke. No. Whispers. No, Officer Davis, I don't think you're a racist. She let it breathe. I think you're something more dangerous. Silence thickened. I think you're trained. I think you're confident. I think you've done this before. And I think you believe you're fair because no one's ever made you question that belief until now. Davis shifted. You said. It wasn't about race, she continued. But you didn't stop a car. You stopped a person. You saw my skin, my heels, my posture, and made a decision before I ever spoke. He opened his mouth. She raised a hand. You didn't just cuff me. You dismissed me. And the moment I didn't get angry, when I stayed calm, that's when you got nervous. Because people like me aren't supposed to stay calm. We're supposed to yell. To prove your bias right. She took a step forward. I don't want your apology. I want your awareness. One of the moderators, an older black man in a gray suit, nodded slowly. We appreciate your courage in saying that. Officer Davis, any response? Davis was red in the face, sweating, gripping the table's edge. I hear her. But, do you see her? The moderator asked gently. He looked up and for once really looked at the calm woman, still standing, still composed, still UNBOTHERED. Pearls catching the light. The clip hit Twitter within an hour. 3.9 million views. I don't think you're a racist. I think you're something more dangerous. I don't want your apology. I want your awareness. It was called the Pearl mic drop. Memes exploded. Her calm stare became a sticker, a GIF, a slogan. But inside the auditorium, the silence stayed longer than the applause. That night, Davis returned home and sat in his driveway for 15 minutes before walking inside. His wife opened the door. "You okay?" "I think," he whispered. "I think I finally saw her. Councilwoman wants to speak with you." The message came through her assistant just before noon. No appointment. No press. Mrs. Holley showed up in a dark blue suit. No earrings this time. Just her notebook. City Hall conference room. Long table. Glass pitcher. 8 chairs. One empty. Councilwoman Renee Delgado stood as she entered. "I wanted to speak privately," she said. "No microphones. No show." Mrs. Holley nodded once. "That's how I prefer it." They sat. Delgado folded her hands. "I've watched every clip, every podcast. I know your calm is a weapon, and I admire it." A pause. "But now I need your help." Mrs. Holley raised an eyebrow. "We're forming a community oversight board, civilian-led, budget influence, policy review. And we want you to sit on it." Silence. "I'm not asking you to become political," Delgado said gently. "I'm asking you to stay powerful." Mrs. Holley didn't smile, but her eyes said yes. The announcement came. 2 days later. Headline: Podcast host turned advocate joins oversight board. Silence isn't compliance. The city responded instantly. Approval. Fury. Curiosity. Headlines like, "From handcuffs to City Hall." Mrs. Holley, the calm before the reform. Pearls in policy. A new era begins. Inside the department, Captain Lore held the article in one hand and a mug of lukewarm coffee in the other. Sergeant Mina walked in. "You see this?" she asked. "I saw it coming weeks ago," he replied. "She's going to change everything." She already has. At her first board meeting, the air was tight. Reporters waited outside. Cameras off but tension on. She took her seat, spoke second. "We're not here to punish. We're here to protect what this uniform should mean." She looked directly at the liaison from the police union, and that starts by acknowledging what it already does mean to too many of us. Later that week, the mayor called a surprise press conference. Effective immediately. The department will launch a full audit of traffic stops and use of force complaints. Mrs. Holley will serve as co-chair. Reporters snapped photos as she exited the podium, pearls back on, the crowd buzzing behind her. Back in the Tesla, her husband smiled as he drove. "You're a board member and a podcast host now." She smirked. "Guess I'll need more notebooks." He reached over, squeezing her hand. "You're making them listen." She looked out the window. "I'm making them see." That night, her next podcast went live. EP 44. Visibility isn't victory, but it's a start. She closed it with this: "When they cuffed me, I didn't scream. When they pushed back, I didn't retreat. And when they offered me a seat, I didn't bring rage. I brought receipts." The barbershop buzz.tv on mute. Everyone watching anyway. A segment on the new oversight board aired quietly behind the mirrors. One of the barbers, mid-fade, paused and muttered. She didn't yell once. Not once. Still flipped the whole table. His client nodded. She changed the game. Now everybody's rethinking how they move. At a local high school, a social Studies teacher hit play on a video. Mrs. Hale's town hall response. I don't think you're a racist. I think you're something more dangerous. A girl raised her hand. So, she's saying unconscious bias can do just as much harm? The teacher smiled. Exactly. The classroom was quiet. Then a boy muttered, Loki, I think I cuff people in my head all the time. Someone nodded. Same. In a precinct downtown, a new memo hit the wall. Mandatory bias training. Civilian-led model facilitator, Mrs. Hawley. Oversight co-chairman grumbled, but Moore read it twice. Meanwhile, Mrs. Hawley walked through the doors of a neighborhood church. Wasn't there for a speech? She came to listen. Small group of women sat in a circle. All had stories. They pulled me over with my kids in the car. I was questioned in my own driveway. I got followed every time I wore my nurse scrubs. Mrs. Hawley didn't take notes. She just looked at each one. You're not alone, she said quietly. You're also not invisible anymore. At a local cafe, a group of cops sat by the window. Officer Reynolds scrolled through TikTok. Yo. The Dignified Silence merch store is selling shirts now, with her face. The mic drop moment. Officer. Mina sipped her coffee. Good, let the message spread. She's making money off us. She's making change off us, Mina corrected. Money's just a byproduct. Reynolds leaned back. You ever met her? Mina shook her head. Don't need to. I feel her everywhere now. The boutique where it all started changed hands. New owner. New window display. In the front, mannequin in pearls and a navy blue blazer. Beside it, a sign. You belong here, period. The podcast hit a milestone. 1 million subscribers. She didn't celebrate with champagne. She uploaded. Episode 45. Culture doesn't shift when you scream. It shifts when you refuse to move. She said, every time I speak calmly, it shakes louder than a megaphone. Because they expect rage. But they never expect us to stand still and dismantle the room with our eyes. Culture doesn't shift in courtrooms. It shifts in back rooms, hallways, parking lots, classrooms, and break rooms. At home, her husband sat with her on the couch. You feel it, don't you? He asked. She nodded. People aren't just reacting anymore. They're rethinking. He smiled. You didn't just survive a moment, baby. You started a movement. It started with a headline on a fringe blog. Podcast host's husband pressured department behind the scenes, abuse of federal power. Number. Evidence. Just enough noise. Then came the anonymous tip about a parking violation from 2019. Then an investigation into her podcast's nonprofit funding. Then the whispers, she's just doing all this for fame. Her husband probably pulled strings. She wants to be mayor or something. The comments turned harsher, louder, uglier. Even allies hesitated. On air, a morning host raised the issue. Maybe we crowned her too fast. After all, who even is she, really? The co-host shrugged. One viral moment doesn't make someone qualified. At the next oversight board meeting, a local columnist ambushed her on the steps. Mrs. Hawley, care to respond to the accusations you're exploiting this platform for influence? She stopped walking, turned slowly, faced the cameras, and in one breath, I was cuffed, dismissed, threatened, and erased long before anyone knew my name. I didn't ask for influence. I asked for integrity. But now that I have influence, I'm using it. Then she walked inside. That clip went more viral than the original arrest footage. I didn't ask for influence. I asked for integrity. Screenshots flooded Twitter, Instagram, even LinkedIn. The backlash? Backfired. But that didn't stop the pressure. A private donor pulled funding from her podcast. One of the board members suggested she take a step back to let the noise settle. Even a close friend hesitated to repost her latest episode. It stung, but she kept moving. In her kitchen, she brewed tea. Her husband watched from the table. You good? He asked. She stirred. Funny, she said. They cuffed me once, and I stayed silent. Now I speak and they want to cage me again. Just cleaner this time. You're still standing. I'm still me. That week, episode 46 dropped. Title: Character attacks are what they do when change begins to work. She didn't. Name names. She named patterns. They didn't smear me because I lied. They smeared me because I told the truth calmly and made people listen. They expect us to yell because they know how to mute volume. What they can't mute. Is clarity. At the precinct, Officer Mina watched the episode from her locker bench. Sergeant Lore passed by. She's still standing, Mina said. Quietly, he nodded. They always push hardest before the ground finally shifts. That Sunday, a handwritten note arrived in her mailbox. No threat. No photo. Just 4 words. You gave us language. No name. No return address. Just hope. 1 year to the day. Same street. Same boutique. But this time, it wasn't sirens waiting. It was applause. The city organized a formal recognition event. Media gathered. Teachers brought students. Local leaders stood waiting under a banner that read, Community Honor, Voices. That reshaped us. Mrs. Hawley stepped out of the same Tesla. No cuffs. No doubt, no noise, just elegance. Pearls. Again. The mayor stepped up to the mic. Some leaders shout to be heard, but Mrs. Hawley? She paused, she whispered, and the whole city leaned in. Applause. She changed not only our policy but our culture, without suing, without screaming, just by standing still and speaking. Applause again, longer. Mrs. Hawley on behalf of the city. Thank you. They handed her a plaque, but instead of stepping back, she stepped forward. No script. Just grace. I don't accept this for myself, she said, because I wasn't the only one cuffed that day. The crowd quieted. I carry the women who were stopped before me, the ones who didn't have cameras, didn't have badges behind them, didn't have podcasts, didn't have husbands in federal suits. I'm standing here because someone recorded, because someone listened, because someone believed. She looked directly at the students seated in the front row. So today, I accept this on behalf of every black woman who was told, you don't belong here, and every girl who's been waiting for proof that dignity is power. Tears welled in the crowd. Even the mayor wiped her eyes. Later, back at home, she placed the plaque on the shelf beside her notebooks. Her husband leaned against the doorframe. They're already calling it the Hollis Standard, he said. Department's rewriting policy to include it. She raised an eyebrow. What standard? He grinned. To ask before assuming. To pause before force. To see, not just scan. She chuckled softly. That's not a standard. That's just being decent. He walked over, wrapping his arms around her. You'd be surprised how rare that is. One final podcast episode dropped that night. EP 47. Legacy isn't loud, it lasts. If you remember me, remember this. I didn't fight by shouting. I didn't win by dragging anyone down. I won by standing up and staying there long enough for others to stand with me. Final shot, the boutique window. Now framed with student artwork. Above it, stenciled in bold, clear letters. Dignity walks here. Fade out.